Hey you, welcome back to the channel. And guys, if you watch the channel, you know my routine. When a movie like the Justice League comes out, I usually give you guys a few weeks, let it marinate. So when you get back here, talk about spoiler territory. And if you haven't seen the movie yet, please go watch Justice League, come back here and join us. So let's talk about it, guys. From the very beginning, we had been getting a lot of information coming out with the Justice League movie, the direction it was going in. Tragically, unfortunately, Zack Snyder had a personal tragedy. He had to step down from the Justice League. It was taken over by the Wonder Boy from Marvel, Josh Whedon. And, you know, I've had my issues with Mr. Zack Snyder, but I've also praised Zack Snyder for great work he's done on movies like The Watchmen, even like the 300 movies. He has it when it comes to visuals. That's what Zack is. He's a visual person. But Zack Snyder, when it comes to putting together movies and basically the stories, I just don't think uh, this the type of movies he's done in the DC franchise over the last these he wasn't the best person picked to do these movies, and that's nothing negative against Zack Snyder. I just think his talents were not used where they need to be. But what was very clear to me is that when Josh Whedon took over, it looks like everything worked like it should, like it should. I guys really enjoyed this movie. I mean, I was shocked and surprised that I enjoyed this movie. I was really looking at it like Wonder Woman would come in and she would do have her great presence like she did in the Wonder Woman movie, and it would be basically overshadowed by what I thought we was going to probably get in a disaster movie. And it didn't work that way. Everybody, to me, everything worked out well. All the characters, to me, they had just enough time to get me interested enough, get me invested enough, and move on. And I thought that was very important. A lot of people did complain about the length the length of the movie, the runtime, and Warner Brothers had cut the time to under 2 hours, and this was a lot of characters and a lot of story to tell. But I was very appreciative they did cut this down because I thought I got just enough. I thought I was invested enough. I thought it told the story enough, and it moved on. And I appreciated that because like with the Man of Steel movie, I thought it just ran on way too long, and then I was just exhausted by a lot of action scenes, and so that started the problems. For me with Zack in the DC universe. Josh Whedon comes in, and it looks like everything's been cleaned up for the most part. The story was great. The way it was done was great. A lot of people had a problem with the Flash's humor. And to me, that's just a indication of what I had always been saying about how DC stories goes. DC, when it comes to putting together these superhero movies, their movies have the most realistic series feel, I think, and I think that kind of shows what people complain about the Flash because when we see this done with Marvel, Marvel just has every line is a comedy line. Everybody is a comedian over there, and it works for Marvel, and nobody complains. But we have it here with the Flash, and they're saying it's not working, and I think that's because of how DC movies are done. I don't think we're really used to humor in DC movies, and I think what Josh Whedon was attempting to do was kind of lighting this movie up. You know, as one big complaint of DC movies had been, they just had went way too dark. Everybody was leading off Batman in a sense. And I thought that the Flash character, he was more on that more of that very socially awkward side, and he was doing a lot of comedy bits. But because nobody else was, and he was the comic relief, for me it kind of worked. I didn't have a big problem with the Flash. I did think it was a bit too much at times, but it wasn't enough to really make me, and that's very rare for me because a lot of times I don't like the comedy reliefs in movies if they're put in the wrong place, especially when I'm, in certain places in the movie and then they take me out of the movie. And the whole movie just kind of falls apart and feels unrealistic to me. But I think The Flash is a bit of comedy relief in certain points. I think it did work good enough. Justice League wasn't a perfect movie, but it definitely, to me, is one of the best DC movies, and it's almost on par to me with the Wonder Woman movie. Give or take a little bit. Um, Batman, played by, Ben Affleck, of course, a lot of us were like, this is bad casting. We don't see how Ben Affleck's, gonna be able to do the Batman role. Some people were on board for the very beginning. I wasn't. I thought I was going to see Ben Affleck in every scene. And I do see Ben Affleck in every scene. But I will say this. In this movie, he really sold me as Batman. And I think the idea of Batman I had always had in my head coming over from the comics, coming from the Frank Miller Batman, was that, he was always this kind of, dark loner type, person. But I think Ben Affleck works well in this because this is a more of a team player Batman. Now, we know that when Batman teams up with the Justice League, he's like one of the senior leaders, and he's leading a lot of things with the Justice League. So this is a team player Batman. This is a captain of the team, put the team together, be the leader of the team Batman. This isn't the dark Batman. And I thought Ben Affleck fit that well, and I think he's really coming into his own with the Batman role. Unfortunately, now we're hearing, we had heard the stories about he doesn't want to do Batman anymore because he wasn't going to be able to direct the Batman movie, I think it was. But the thing about it, I don't even think his version of Batman needs a standalone movie. I think this version of Batman only needs to be part of the Justice League. I don't think we need to see another Batman movie or standalone Batman movie, personally. Wonder Woman, as always, did a great job coming over from her Wonder Woman movie. Again, I was afraid that Justice League was going to be a disaster and kind of overshadow a lot of what she did on Wonder Woman, but it didn't. It surprisingly, to me, again, guys, this was a good movie. And when I say I felt it was a good movie, I don't mean it was just a good movie on the level of just better than, what we've been getting from DC. But I thought on its own, it was a pretty good darn movie. Again, not a perfect movie. It was some stuff that I felt that didn't need to be in there. But I feel they're on the right track. I enjoyed this movie. I thought the length time was good. So Wonder Woman was the same Wonder Woman from the movies. Well, she had grown more from that movie, how she looked at, humanity, but still very optimistic, still being that beacon of hope. And I loved her scenes. Gal Gadot never disappoints, and she did well. The Flash, again, the comic relief overdone a lot. I didn't think I was going to like the Flash at all from the trailers. I thought he was going to be this very goofy, awkward comic relief, person there for comic relief, and it wasn't going to work well. But I did like Ezra Miller's portrayal of the Flash. I thought he did pretty good. I see him as a younger Flash. You know, I see him like the Spider-Man, uh, 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 um, you know, crossover to, you know, joining the Avengers, and you know, and how that worked out with him coming on, and Peter Parker being, you know, very inexperienced and young and just gaining his superpowers. And I kind of see this with the Flash. I'm looking at him as a very early version, like he just, you know, has gotten, you know, the Speed Force and just, you know, coming into all of that. So Aquaman, I thought was great. I liked Aquaman, played by Jason Momoa in this movie. I wasn't sure about Aquaman either, because in the trailers, you know, him being this like surfer type dude, he, you know, we get the trailer with him fighting the parademons, and he falls out of the sky. He kind of does this, uses one as a surfboard. And I was like, okay, this looks like Mr. Zack Snyder at work here, and it looks a bit goofy and silly, so I don't know where it's going, but it actually ended up working quite well, and we ended up getting a good story about how they're doing this Aquaman. And of course, this is the Arthur Curry comic book Aquaman, where, you know, he's not raised in Atlantis, where he is dropped off as a baby to be raised, it looks like, by a human father, but then becomes the ruler of Atlantis, returns to Atlantis. And of course, I loved how they did. I was wondering how they were going to do the underwater scenes with Aquaman. I love how they did everything with those scenes, you know, with Aquaman. And we got to see that there was a lot of conflict with him there in Atlantis, him now being king and bearing the responsibility of Atlantis, you know, but you can see that there is a lot of resentment, you know, for, you know, being left and raised outside of Atlantis, being like this outsider coming home, and Mira and him are, you know, dealing with that. So I'm very much looking forward to the Aquaman movie when it comes out, and exploring Aquaman more. I think I was more interested in what he'll do in his movie than anybody else, because I'm really not that interested in the Flash. I don't know what it is. I kind of see Flash like another one of these Spider-Man movies, even though the Flash hasn't come to the silver screen yet. We've never seen him on the silver screen yet. I just don't know. I think some of these characters, I think, just fit better within the scope of the Justice League. I don't know if they need to get their own movies. I think I'd much rather see, you know, someone else, maybe a little bit unfamiliar character. But the Aquaman movie, we've never seen him on the silver screen yet, and that looks really good. I think that would be very interesting and work very well. Now, Cyborg, you know, Cyborg, obviously, we got to understand Cyborg was partially created by one of the Mother Boxes, and his story was very interesting. Obviously, he was all the intelligence and information, you know, that the Justice League was, was receiving, and able to figure out many of the things. And a lot of people don't feel Cyborg was used enough in the movie. I thought he was used enough. I don't think he's going to get his own movie, and I'm fine with that. I don't think a lot of these guys need to get a standalone movie. I'm fine with them going forward as the Justice League. I thought the Cyborg his character was interesting enough. I thought I got enough of what happened to him and what I know from the comic books, but I thought within the scope of the movie, I understood enough of what happened to him and how he was created like that and what his role was in that movie. So I thought that was fine. I got it, and that was, you know, good enough for me. And then, we moved on to Superman. And I was quite surprised with what we got with Superman. You know, I really thought it was going to be a lot less Superman in the movie. I was like, well, they're setting this up in the very end. They're going to wake Superman up some kind of way. and they're going to get Superman, and Superman is going to, save the day, which is what happened, but it happened a lot differently. I would say we got Superman at about close to half the movie, and we got a lot more Superman than I thought. Also, what was very interesting is how Superman came back to life, as we got to see. A lot of, I was led to believe that maybe, at the end of Batman versus Superman, when he dies, I was led to believe that Superman was not really dead, but maybe in a sleep-like state, and the yellow sun was regenerating him. You kind of see the pebbles floating up and things like that. But, that wasn't the case at all. Superman was dead, and they were able to use the Krypton ship, much like how Lex Luthor created Doomsday from Zod, and they kind of, with use of the Mother Box, was able to bring Superman back to life. Now, this is, of course, where we got to see the movie at its best for me. And that was, they bring Superman back to life. Obviously, there are great moral implications about doing this, as Wonder Woman warns. But this is the only way they can defeat Steppenwolf. And we'll talk a little bit about Steppenwolf in a bit. But this is the only way they can defeat Steppenwolf. They need Superman. They need the Kryptonian. And, this is, again, where I thought the movie shined. I could see a lot of Joss Whedon in this, too. Joss Whedon, for years, with his television series and everything he does, no matter what he's done, I pretty much found it entertaining. And it carried over into the Justice League. And we get, of course, we got to see what happened when Superman comes back from the dead. He doesn't remember what's going on, who he is, or he's kind of in this state of madness, and he's fighting all the Justice League members. And when the Flash is trying to run around him, because as the Flash says, he's not really a fighter. He just kind of runs around people and gets out of people's way. Only we get to see he can't run away from Superman. Superman's just tracking him with his eyes in slow-mo at the and that was just an awesome, funny, and just well done scene. And of course, for the the comic book fans, we know when it comes to the contest between Superman and Flash, it's always been the speed contest and these races. And Flash was always supposed to be the fastest man alive. And sometimes, in some ways, they've kind of left off like who could win the race, and who's really faster. But we kind of get hints of that. We get Superman flying as Flash is moving through the Speed Force. Superman's flying and calling him slowpoke and things like that, and they kind of cut away. But I enjoyed all that. I thought that was excellent. I thought it was paying great fan service, and just awesome. Just awesome scene. The movie was well done, guys. I got to give it to DC. And I hate to say this, but maybe it's time for Zack Snyder to just stop, completely step away. I hear they're getting a Justice League 2. He needs to completely step away from these projects now, and just let it go. I don't think it was a disaster. I didn't look at I did one time see the Rotten Tomatoes score. It was crazy. It was like 33, and I don't understand why that was. I don't understand how Batman versus Superman was much higher than, this movie. And so I don't know who's, I'm talking to you guys as an audience and whoever else is watching this. I don't understand how that occurred. I don't understand how this movie is not seen way many times better than all these other DC movies, with the exception of Wonder Woman. So that puzzles me. But that's what we got, and we just had this great ensemble, and they came together well. So let's talk about Steppenwolf for a second. And Steppenwolf's character, basically this is like, like when you play the video games and you got the main boss and then you got the underbosses. Well, obviously, Steppenwolf was the underboss. So I don't think people should have expected a lot from Steppenwolf. But what we did get with Steppenwolf was a good underboss character. I thought Steppenwolf was a good character before you get the dark side. And obviously, Steppenwolf's goal was to lay the foundation, create this world, get it ready for dark side, create the planet Apocalypse, much like their own. In the comic books, they're a part of New God series. And, with Steppenwolf going back to when they were first trying to retrieve the mother boxes, we get to see these great epic battles with Atlanteans and before they're driven underwater with the Amazons. Even the Green Lantern Corps is part of it, and one Green Lantern is killed, looks like, by Steppenwolf. And those scenes were great. I really enjoyed how they went back. I was very excited to see all of that, how they did it, and how the Amazons fought alongside with the Atlanteans, and all very interesting stuff. Well done, and this excites me to see Justice League 2 when it comes out. Again, I just hope that Josh is part of Justice League 2. Much like, unfortunately, this is something unfortunate had to happen to get him on board with this one, but he obviously will take DC in the right direction. I would like to see that occur, and I'm glad to see DC, for me, is finally getting where it needs to be. I foresaw that they could be like this, but again, under Zack Snyder, I just didn't have hope that was going to happen. To me, he had just completely destroyed everything about the entire DC legacy, and I just felt people should have been up in arms about it. People weren't, and some people were. I was one of them. But everything now seems to be working out well with Justice League. I hope it stays going in that direction. So guys, that's all I want to say about the Justice League. I give it a thumbs up. It's not a perfect movie, not the best DC movie, but one of the best, putting DC back on the right course. And is DC on Marvel's level? No, still not on Marvel's level. I don't know if it'll ever be, but it's definitely moving in a better direction. Guys, let me know what you thought about the Justice League movie. If you think it's going in the right direction, if you enjoyed the movie. Guys, if you like content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and until next time, take care.